Welcome back to COM 2241. And I'm going to talk a little bit about informative speeches. The PowerPoint is already uploaded, and so we're going to learn about speaking to inform. Obviously, it's designed to convey knowledge, understanding. Get this straight. To convey knowledge, to convey information, not to persuade anybody to do or think anything. It is simply information. It is non-controversial. Speaker does not intend to change audience attitudes. There are several different kinds or categories. You can speak about objects, processes, events, concepts, and people. We'll say people. An object is anything visible, tangible, stable in form. You could give an informative speech about how baseballs are made, or how a marble cake is made, that sort of thing. Objects usually fit into a how-to. There are shows on TV, how something is made. They're very clever and fascinating. You can make it very fascinating. They are simple, straightforward speeches. Time limit determines the amount of detail one can share. So, if you have a lot of information to tell about something, you can start out with a lot of information, run the speech by, time yourself, and if it's too long, then you take out a couple of points here and there, all right? It's easier to remove information than it is to add information. That's the way I write. I write a lot and then I delete when I go over. Here is the skeleton of an object speech. These are the three main points. The base of the St. Louis Arch houses a visitor center with a museum, 2 movie theaters, and retail outlets. The middle of the St. Louis Arch contains a high-speed tram that carries visitors from the base to the top. The third main point, the top of the St. Louis Arch has an observation deck 630 feet above the ground, and you can see forever if they cleaned the windows. They didn't clean the windows the last time I was there. Let's see, moving on to slide 8. And here we get into giving an informative speech about a process. A systematic series of actions leading to a specific result. This is also like a how-to speech. You can describe a process in terms of steps, although you're talking about a process and not an object. Okay, that's the difference between those. Process describes how something works, or a process that produces a particular outcome. It doesn't have to be how to make something. It can be how to be successful in business, that sort of thing. Example, how to surf, how to refinish furniture. Another one. Here are 2 main points for this process speech. Many magic tricks rely on mechanical devices that may require little skill by the magician, and other magic tricks depend on the magician's skill in fooling people by sleight of hand manipulation. We'll try to do this in one movie. The next category is events. Anything that happens or is regarded as happening. Let's say you want to give a speech on the Big Bang, and you just inform us, we've all heard of it. What is it? Okay, so inform us about it. It's an event. I'm going to give you this example about Mardi Gras, and I really don't want any more speeches about Mardi Gras. I've heard so many. Here are three main points. The parades are lavish events that take place over the course of several weeks. The costumes include disguises, medallions, and the Mardi Gras colors of purple, green, and gold. And the food features Cajun and Creole dishes common to southern Louisiana. Slide 13, or we can talk about people. Biographical. No need to tell everything about a person. You certainly can't do that in 3 or 4 minutes. You have to find a slice, a very thin slice of somebody's life if you want to talk about them and have some detail to it. We really don't want, Ben Franklin was born in Philadelphia and this year, and he grew up, and then he discovered electricity, and then this and this and this and this and this. That's a resume speech. And I wrote that in some of your comments. A resume speech does not follow the format that we're talking about. A resume speech doesn't have a thesis in it. So please don't give line after line after line after line about what somebody did. That is not the kind of speech we're doing in this class. So you want to take 1 year perhaps in somebody's life, or that person's development of something, something very narrow in a person's life. You cannot do a complete biography in 4 minutes. There's just no way. And a concept, okay? These are interesting. A belief, a theory, an idea, a notion, a principle. Example, time management, evolution, freedom of speech. Now, when I say evolution, evolution is a pretty complicated thing. Freedom of speech is a pretty complicated thing. We have to be sure we can get it all done in the time limit. So if you want to take a facet of evolution, you can do that. All right, here's a concept speech on nonviolent resistance. The first major principle of nonviolent resistance is that social change must be achieved by moral means. The second major principle of nonviolent resistance is that one should not inflict violence on one's enemies. And the third major principle of nonviolent resistance is that suffering can be a powerful social force. Now, if you wanted to use an example, 1 or 2 examples for each main point, you could use the civil rights movement. You could use Gandhi and his work in India, and any number of things where nonviolent resistance was used by the people. So that would be very interesting. Then on 16, guidelines. Just tips for you to think about. Don't overestimate what the audience knows. Don't assume what the audience knows. Relate the subject to the audience. Here's where your relevance statement is. If I'm going to speak about nonviolent resistance, how do I make that relevant to my audience? How do I tell the audience why it's relevant, why they should be interested in it? So remember all the parts of the speech, and you have to be able to do all of those things with the topic that you choose. So you're relating the subject of the speech to the audience. And don't be too technical. You don't have the time for it. And avoid information overload. And last but not least, avoid abstractions. Be very clear about what you're saying. Personalize the ideas. And by all means, be creative. Let your creative juices flow. I'm ready for somebody to just come on out and do something stupendous. You may think it's silly as you're putting it together, but trust me, nobody will think it's silly. I had somebody give a speech once on the difference between pancakes and waffles. Um, Let me tell you, he got a standing ovation when it was over. It was so funny, okay? But he did everything he was supposed to do. He told the audience why he should be the one to do it. That was his credibility statement. He told them why it would be relevant to them. And he had main points, three major main points about waffles and pancakes. And it was great. It was very great. Okay, there we go. That's the end of that one.